It's a Defiant Ones. Season 2 is rolling. We got EFFY here backstage at Washington Hall, historic venue. He just finished wrestling for his Defy debut, GCW Defy weekend. Let's get into our interview here on the Defiant Ones. This is so awesome to have you, man. It was GCW Defy weekend. What's it been like for you to be back in the Pacific Northwest?
It's super awesome. I got to be honest, my schedule the last few months has been like kind of a nightmare. And so like when I tell people like, oh, like I'm going to fly to Seattle and fly home and I'm going to spend 2 days there, they're like, that's crazy. But for me, like 2 days in one place, incredible.
Yeah.
And then like, it's only a 5-hour flight, incredible. Like it's, I've taken a little bit of rest now. So it's like, I was ready to get back on the road. Pacific Northwest is great. I've gotten to work for a few promotions up here, but I've never stepped foot in a Defy ring.
Well,
so
welcome.
This was like a wonderful tick off the box.
Absolutely.
But, once the box is ticked, you want to keep ticking it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to just do it one time and leave.
Become a Defy regular, man.
Yeah.
So that's why we're having you on the pod, to get you more acquainted.
Acquainted.
We all know you, and you got a big ovation tonight. People were loving it. Obviously, you tagged with a fan favorite. Let's just call him Curry Man.
Yeah, it's legendary. I've been watching Curry Man for years.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's,
the Curry Man.
Listen, there's no difference I could tell.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. He's gotten himself into incredible shape.
Really buff.
Yes.
And so tall.
Absolutely.
Curry Man, very spicy.
Very spicy.
Yeah, and the Bollywood Boys, pretty spicy too.
Absolutely. What were they throwing out? What was that?
They are the Indian Punjabi sweets that they got from a fresh Indian bakery.
That's awesome.
And I had been bugging them for a while, like even before the match. I came to GCW, I was like, did you guys bring me any sweets? I see them passing them out in the crowd during the entrance. And they're like, oh, we'll bring you sweets, Little did I know I'd be eating them during the match. Yeah. I think when I opened my mouth on my knees, they got the wrong impression.
Okay.
Or maybe I was giving the wrong impression. I don't know. I can be wrestling can be a lot of things to me, and it's not always wrestling.
Yes, absolutely, man. Now, so you said you've taken a little bit. Your schedule's crazy. Where are you always flying out of? Where do you call home these days, EFFY? Because you're from Tallahassee, right?
So I started wrestling in Tallahassee, Florida, and I was trained in Live Oak, Florida, and I would just drive out every week to a field with a ring in it.
What?
I was trained by White Trash Fred.
Okay,
he's a legend.
That's great.
And then I moved to Atlanta like right before COVID, and so I'm out of Atlanta now.
Nice.
And the flights are great. It's magic. But like in the past 3 months, I've been home 2-3 days a week.
Wow.
Luckily, like I have a roommate who helps out with my dog.
Totally.
The dog is pissed that I leave so much, but like this time of year, at least like winter, like some people are like, oh, there's not enough shows. But I'm like, oh, like a weekend off. Like, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I visited my mom last weekend, took a weekend off. I had not seen her for a year.
Wow.
She lives 2 hours from my house. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like, I got to do better.
But is it something that you could say no to a booking, or are you just taking everything you can get and loving it?
Yeah, I think right now, especially like, for me, the long-term game is not jumping to a bigger company. The long-term game for me is to see the independent wrestling scene continue to grow. Like, not to get too deep in the weeds, but the internet has kind of changed everything, as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
So for me, being able to be someone who has never stepped foot on TV, not once in my 10-year career, to go to Japan and Australia and Germany and the UK and Canada and 39 states and have people in every place already know who I am, I think that we've ceilinged indie wrestling as something that's kind of a stepping stone to the next place, when in reality, like, I don't see any ceiling. Like, I want these places to have to get bigger venues, to have to charge more for tickets, to have to, set up the EFFY meet and greet because the lines are too crazy. I don't have a problem of being able to reach people. It's just making sure they know where we are, making sure the shows are advertised. And I think that, in the future, we're gonna keep building up on what this is. And like you said, like, there are people who are just coming out to have a good time, or who may say, we got to go look at EFFY. I like the fan who shows up and they're surprised I even wrestle. Like, they just want to come look at me.
Yes.
And then they're like, and he does tricks.
He's
like,
kind of like a rock star.
Yeah. Like, I describe myself as a gay myth. Like, is he real or not?
Nice.
I don't know. I can say no to bookings, but I also like being able to go into these indie wrestling places, talk to people, work with people, see what their styles are, give tips that other people aren't really going to give them, or give them kind of things from my playbook. Because I wouldn't follow the regular like wrestling playbook, really.
Yeah.
So to be able to like pull somebody and be like, pose this a little longer, or do this, or what was that thing you did? I hope that we can just keep building strong places everywhere.
Absolutely.
And, teach people that if they put the work into their shows, like, it's not about, it's sick to travel all the time now, but also like, what if you build your home promotion up to be a destination instead of looking at all the destinations around you?
Yeah.
So I could say no to bookings right now, long answer short, but I'm having so much fun just exploring the scene and seeing everything out there, and seeing the new talent come in with a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Than was there when I started.
Absolutely, man. And let's talk a little bit about like your rise and your wrestling fandom and stuff. But one thing I do want to say, and this is not even a question, but I just want to say that growing up as a wrestling fan, you would always see the gay character as a heel, right? Like Goldust, and obviously he wasn't gay, but he played
Adrian Street wasn't gay.
Yeah,
Gorgeous George wasn't gay.
But they were kind of like looked at as a heel. How awesome it is that there is an openly gay, flamboyant character such as yourself who's not a heel. You're just, and everyone loves you. Whatever you're playing in the match, it is, but you are loved for who you are. Like, how important is that to you?
It's a weird kind of story the way it happened, because I did start as a heel, and that's how I would get booked.
Yeah,
that's how I would get promoted. I'd kind of bullshit my way into shows where it's like, they don't really know my history. I'm not coming from the Dudley's school. I'm not coming from Jay Lethal's school. I'm not coming from A.R. Fox's school.
Out of nowhere.
Right? Yeah. And so to come in and work heel, I was also like kind of venting out my frustrations to people, and like I would drop wet dollars on people if they were homophobic, and I had my quick wit about me.
Yeah.
And then people started showing up and saying like, we heard there was this really wild gay dude here, and they were cheering me for being kind of this petty little brat.
Yeah.
And so when I started to get over babyface with this crowd, I realized like they don't want to see something different, and it sort of kept this edge and attitude about me where like I'm kind of still a dick and I'm kind of still a brat, and there's an authenticity to it now where like, yeah, sometimes I lean into stereotypes heavily, but also that's just me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm really bloody and crazy and dealing with violence, and that's also just me. And like, I think just to see someone who's sort of well-rounded, has flaws, has weaknesses in the ring, but also has strength and has sort of the courage and confidence to be like every version of themselves, whether that be getting beat up or whether that be being a little silly or trying to suck some toes like last night.
Suck a toe.
I think it's not that, I'm some big gay role model. It's just also like, I think it's nice to see something with a little dimension to it rather than like, oh, the gay boy's going to freak you out.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he will, but also maybe he'll beat your ass.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, multitudes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You gotta, it's, wrestling is characters, so to say, but like, they've got to see the whole dimension of a character. You can't be Goldberg strong.
You're violent
all the time.
and sexy.
Yeah. Violent, sexy, but also like, you can beat me up. I'm not an immovable object, but also I can come back. I've got a lot of heart and fight in me. Having all of those versions, you want people to be able to see themselves in you. And I always, I'll joke to people and be like, yeah, I'm getting jacked and muscular, but if I get too jacked or too lean, then I won't be, the people won't be able to see themselves in me anymore.
Not relatable.
You want to still be relatable. You don't want to be a faraway thing that they can't attach to or understand. Like, they've got to see something in the story that's like them. And so being able to be all of those things and say like, yeah, I'm cool and awesome and sexy and hot, but I also have insecurities and I also have weaknesses. Like, that's more important than just being a particular type of gay character to me,
So did you grow up a wrestling fan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that. Like, what was your first exposure?
My dad was a Southern wrestling fan.
Okay.
They wouldn't let me watch Raw most nights because it was like too much adult stuff.
But WCW was
a lot of WCW, a lot of like old like Crockett stuff.
Wow.
Like, my dad never told me it was fake.
Okay.
Big Dusty fan. I've got Dusty tattooed on my left foot.
That's awesome.
Big Ric Flair fan. It was a lot of that old school Southern style, Tully Blanchard.
Yeah.
That's sort of in the house. But I didn't start like, my parents would even take me to like SmackDown when I was 10, 12 years old.
That's cool.
And I think they were just like happy I wanted to watch something that was sort of like a sport.
Yeah.
Not realizing like I need to see my stories.
Yeah.
It was just as much a part of it. But I sort of like, I fell back into it in college because we would smoke weed and watch old wrestling tapes. And I think like torrenting and finding these old weird places and then getting into indie wrestling and Japanese wrestling that people were finding that like I didn't even know existed. I was sort of like, this is sick.
Yeah.
And now like I started training to wrestle when I quit drinking. Like I was, a lot of people quit drinking later. I quit drinking at 23. I'd been drinking since I was 15. I'd had my drinks. And so I was like, I have a lot of energy and time. Like, what if we find out if you can do this thing? And having these little steps of I just want to get in a ring, or I just want to do a show, or I just want to have a match. It's the build. I like to joke to people like, have you ever accidentally become a revolutionary by just not stopping?
Yeah.
And I've sort of oopsied myself into this position where like I've been able to accomplish things I wouldn't imagine, and not to like toot my own horn, but at this point, just continuing to jump in and go like, here's what I like about wrestling. I'm just going to do what I want. And I think that's stupid, or I think that's cool. I've sort of created my own weird lane where like, I don't want you to be like me 100%, but I want you to see that there's options and there's other ways to get over than I joke with people. Sometimes I say, the first guy who came up with the basic match structure, they were like, is there any other way to do it? And he was just so lazy and tired of talking. He said, nope, that's the only way. And wrestlers are so dumb. They just said, okay, that's the only way.
Yeah.
And you come in and you're like, I think there's other ways to do this. And they're like, I don't think so. And you go, but it worked. They go, I don't think so. And so taking my version of wrestling and adding in, you know, my love of cinema and weird stories and the way they build characters and gay culture. And, you know, the whole Effie's Big Gay Brunch thing is like, yeah, there's reverence. We're so proud that gays are doing it. I want it to be ridiculous like a gay club. I want it to be a party, a celebration. Like, you know, what other show are you going to get like legendary Exotico, luchadors, and Baby Bop?
Yes.
And blood and gore and wild. Like, it's everything I love about wrestling, and I'm not apologetic about like putting it forward and saying like, I think other people will like this too.
And they love it. And they love it. Absolutely. So you first got on my radar with something called Fest Wrestling.
Yes.
Down in Florida. And Fest obviously is great wrestling, but it also has to do with a punk rock music festival called Fest. And they have like a pickle on a pole wrestling matches and stuff.
Pickle in the tree,
Are you
baby.
a fan of punk music?
Yeah. I used to play in bands, and then
Really?
I tour managed a few smaller bands like for a little bit during college.
Okay.
So
you come from like punk and punk music.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I feel very punk rock in my soul.
That's awesome.
But I like being a wrestler because I'm the band. I don't have to wait on my drummer. I don't have to load the equipment.
Yeah.
Like, it's all on me, and sometimes that's overwhelming. But I think Fest was the first place. Like, I was about to quit wrestling. I was sick of it. Georgia, Southern Alabama wrestling is very like, here's what you do, don't mess it up.
Sure.
And to go to a place where it's like not run by complete wrestlers who are like, they're like, I don't know if it works, just do it and go crazy. It sort of reignited like this thing, and I got very over
Think
there.
outside the box.
And getting to work with people who like I knew, like having Chuck Taylor come in and having Ruby Soho come in and like
Sue Young,
like having incredible matches with these people and going, oh, like there's other people like me who think wrestling is a little bigger than what a lot of people think.
Totally.
And it's sort of, I kind of threw it to the wind and said, fuck it, and sort of like took Effie to a different level.
That's amazing.
And so it's kind of like I just went back this year, and it was just as awesome as ever. I teamed with Eric Cannon, who's like an indie legend. I watched his match with Samoa Joe the other day. And so like it's provided such a cool punk rock fun vibe that doesn't have the pressures of like, maybe William Regal will watch this, or like you don't know if the agents are here. It's just very like, there's a cool crowd here. Make sure they have fun. And it's it opened my eyes to a different kind of wrestling.
That's awesome, man. So what White Trash Indie? What was the trainer's name?
White Trash Fred.
White Trash Fred. Sorry. White Trash Fred. So you literally in the middle of a field?
Oh yeah, in a field in Live Oak, Florida, outside his parents' house.
Okay.
Like we would have to mop the ring sometimes when it was wet.
Wow. How did you hear about this place?
Oh my God. Okay.
We got to hear this story.
Should we cut to commercial first? And
sure. Let's. Okay. We'll tell the story about White Trash Fred, WTF, and how Effie got his start back here on the Defiant Ones when we come back. Back here on the Defiant Ones, and we are rolling with season 2. This is Effie. Obviously, we're talking a little bit about his start in the business. We're talking about how he toured with punk bands, but now he is the punk band himself, and you don't have to deal with egos of all the musicians.
I have to deal with my own ego.
There you go.
That's a problem.
So we were talking about your start with White Trash Fred in the middle of White Oak, Florida. You said
Live Oak, Florida.
Live Oak, Florida. Yeah. So tell me the story of how you heard about White Trash Fred.
Okay, so I used to get really high, and I would go to the NXT shows that were like middle schools on the what they call the Coconut Loop.
Yes, the smaller shows.
And this was like Mojo Raleigh was like main eventing. This is like 2013. And I couldn't get my car started. And this dude came up and was like, I can start your car. And he got it started right away. And he was like, you a wrestler? And I was like, no. And he was like, I am. And he signed an 8x10 for me, Follow Your Dreams, WTF. And so when I got sober and I was like, I got to try this, I found him on Facebook and I called him, and I would just go out and pay him every week. We would train every week.
Yeah.
And I got to an eventual point where I was like, all right, well, like I've been doing this a year of training. Like, let me just go get on some shows. So I kind of started BSing my way in and getting in on
Yeah.
shows. And like, it is wild that like you meet somebody in a parking lot and they
Yeah.
change the next 10 years of your life dramatically.
Absolutely.
But it was also wrestling in the Florida sun all year and 100 and something degrees,
Brutal.
full humidity.
Yeah.
You can't wear me out in that ring. I sweat a lot,
Yeah.
but like I'm never out of breath.
Yeah.
I'm always ready to go. And I think like the training made a difference in that.
Damn.
And also learning from someone who like knew their stuff, but also wasn't bound by like a particular school structure.
Sure.
And like a class size. Like it was a lot of one-on-one training and other people coming in and messing around. But like there wasn't a whole group of us trying to present ourselves to a trainer who wasn't going to allow us through. It was sort of like, all right, we learned some stuff. Like go
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, there's your master's degree over there.
That's
it was,
cool, man.
It was rowdy. And it's crazy thinking back on it now. Cause like, I don't know. I left a pretty high paying job at a moving company
Okay.
a few years into my career because I was like, oh, finally making money wrestling. Like, I think I can do it. And then COVID hit.
Oh,
and I was
no.
like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But like, that made me a monster.
Yeah.
Like, that made me a hustler. That
Yeah.
made me, like, I was like, I have to pay my bills.
Mhm.
I'm accustomed to a certain lifestyle.
Yep.
And so, like, not that it was wise to pump through COVID, but like, coming out of that and being in hustler mindset and then like not having an option, it was like, I'm going to figure this out. And now it's like,
Now you're
I'm
grinding.
on another level.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you can't throw anything in front of me that'll mess me up.
How important has GCW been in your rise to where you are now?
Super important. And I always kind of point to like, you know, GCW is huge on the indies. We're all over the world. We're in Japan. We're in Germany. Like, it's afforded me so many opportunities, but also it's a place where like my voice is respected. And, you know, if I have an idea, there's room for it to be given credence to work. And like, you see a lot of people come in and out of there. You see a lot of people come and do a few matches, but like, I've been able to look to Brett and the rest of the GCW team and sort of like say, here's what I think my vision of wrestling is. And they go, okay, prove it. And you're kind of thrown into the fire of like proving it. And especially the first few matches I had there, it was like, oh, he's trying to see if I'm going to give up on this, like crazy matches,
Yeah.
you know? And so like to be able to do that for the past 4 years has been crazy. And it's sort of, yeah, there's plenty of times where you're like, I don't know if I should do this, but then you do it. And it's like, I've just added another layer of myself to this. And at this point with the GCW crew and the amount of shows we run and the amount of places we're going, we're sort of like, you know, I looked at MJF, he had 9 matches in 2022. He made more money than me. I get it. But, you know, I wrestled like 140 matches last year, all over the world, like 8 countries, all these states, all these places, traveled, you know, all these miles. And it's like, there's not another wrestling company really doing it like that anymore, where there's such a diverse card. There's so much input just from the talent. We're not being agented. Like the goal is it better be entertaining and it better work, or there's going to be words. But if it works and it's entertaining, you're not given any other direction than that, which scares a lot of people. But also for me, being sort of somebody who's into the art of it, like give them the rope and see if it works. You know, I've been given the rope time and time again. And, you know, luckily it's like, it did work. I mean, obviously. And I think the first time, and Nick Gage will tell you, like, I was being brought in to do a title match, one of my first matches there, and I knew they were just throwing my feet into the fire. And Nick will still tell you, like, I didn't know who the fuck you were. You've been on 2 GCW shows, and you got a title match. I'm gonna test you out, and you proved yourself, and you didn't flinch, and you went for it.
Nice.
And so, like, I think that scares a lot of guys, but it also, like, Brett isn't scared to grow. Brett isn't scared to try weird things, and so to be in the presence of a crew that will jump out on a ledge or give something a try, even though it sounds crazy, like, it's magic. It's cool. We ran a 24-hour wrestling show during COVID and raised $50,000 that went to wrestlers. Like,
that's awesome.
It's insano stuff that, you know, the wrestling business wouldn't necessarily tell you to try.
Totally.
And he's going, all right, well, let's just see.
Let's just do it.
It's awesome.
Try it out.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare I mean, GCW has been known for some brutal matches. How do you prepare for a match against a Nick Gage or something that's going to involve, you know, light tubes and spikes and all these different things? A death match, if you will.
Yeah. You know, I've been afforded a lot of great deathmatch opportunities with people who are super pros. And I think for me, like, the core of deathmatch is to show suffering, right? Like, yeah, there's the spectacle, the explosion, the glass, the this and that, but like, there's also the magic and the tricks of like, how do we show this as violent as it is while making sure like we're not going deeper than the surface? And things happen and stuff is crazy, but it's like, number one, commit all the way. Like the second you second guess yourself is when you get hurt.
Yeah.
And number two, like, okay, I am going to get cut up here. How can I reduce that to being the kind of cuts I want? Which sounds crazy, but like, what other job in the world can you be like, yeah, I bleed on purpose at my job and people cheer for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a magical, crazy adrenaline rush.
Absolutely.
And I think I like to think of the concept of reaching a Buddhist Zen through violence. And so, like, if you meet a lot of deathmatch guys, they're very calm and they're very kind people because
I was surprised with how
it's out of their system.
Nick was.
It's out of their system.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does take preparation, and I've done it less so now, but also it's like it's not something I'll say no to if it's the right moment.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to do it all the time.
Yeah.
But like I also want to be a wrestler
count.
where like any match you give me, I have a plan for it.
Yeah.
I'm not just like, oh, that's not how I work. It's like, give me Speedball, give me Joey, give me Nick Gage, whoever you want to put in front of me. Effie can work with them and make it happen. Yeah. And like that's the mark of a true wrestler for me is like, how will this juxtaposition work? Well, I know how it'll work. Let's make it happen. And being able to, like last night, take crazy German bumps and suck toes, and tonight like eat sweets and have the silliest match of the night.
Yeah.
Like being that kind of well-rounded character, you're going to be afforded more opportunities and you're going to be more comfortable in any situation.
Yes.
So like I don't ever want to be caught off guard.
That's awesome. And you can do it all. And you will even podcast. So tell us a little bit about, before we, end with a question, where people can find your podcast. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. We have a TikTok right now. We're moving to video. It's called Weekend at EFFY's. My roommate, Pitar, who is wonderful and watches my dogs, I was coming home every week and being like, is my life crazy? Like, is this nuts? And he's not a wrestling person. He was like, yeah, your life is nuts. And he ended up, finishing a podcast he was working on about religion. It didn't work out. He just said, let me record it. Let's see what happens. And I said, all right, well, all I'm going to do is sit down and record. So we've started just like every week recording these podcasts. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's a wrestling podcast, but also like, it's me venting like, what the fuck is happening? Like I went, the other weekend from Chicago to San Francisco to Florida in 40 hours. That's crazy. Nobody else is doing that. It's nuts. Let me tell you what I saw. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. Let me tell you what I'm going through. So it's very like stream of conscious and matter of fact. And it's not always about wrestling, but then sometimes I get fired up about stuff. Yeah. Like Jimmy Lloyd says, I had to quit smoking weed. Long story short, whatever. I talk a lot more shit now. I'm very passionate about, fairness, and I'm pro wrestler, as I say. Yeah. And so like sometimes I'm talking and stuff comes up, industry involved. And like, I'm trying to give matter of fact voices to what I think the industry should look like. And luckily, being able to get this out has been wonderful for me, for my brain, but also other people are reaching out to me and saying like, yeah, that's crazy. I've never heard somebody talk about wrestling in this way or express these things. So like, I don't know, it's a much more toned down, honest, real version of me that like is week to week. And I hope like when I'm 100, I can listen back and be like, I have this full hour and a half of every week of my life for the past 3 years.
Also, I mean, just you can transcribe it and make it a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
basically, you're creating an autobiography for yourself.
And I can share all of this, and there's still so much more to share.
There you go.
It's like I have references to go to. Do people read books anymore?
I read an audiobook. I just got the Brian Pillman book, Crazy Like a Fox. But I do read here and there, but I also listen to audiobooks. So.
Well, it's like an audiobook.
There
you
go. But every week. So Weekend at EFFY's.
Weekend at EFFY's.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a joyride.
So one question I always ask, it doesn't have to be wrestling related, but it can be wrestling related or anything. Pick a scar on your body. Show us if you can, but at least tell us the story of how you got the scar.
Can you see it back here?
Can we see it?
Back scar?
This big one?
Yeah.
Oh, that is gnarly, dude. Yeah, we can see that. Can you see that?
We got it?
Absolutely.
I walked in. We were supposed to do a death match for Jimmy Lloyd's birthday. I love Jimmy. I'll do anything for him. He said, we can't do glass. Will you do a no-rope barbed wire match? And I said, I don't know, man. And then Sabu walked up and he goes, just do it. It'll be great. And I was like, what a fever dream. Sabu and Jimmy Lloyd asking me to do a no. I said, okay, I'll do it. The people putting that thing together did not know what the fuck they were doing. I walk in the ring and I'm like, I look at Ref Scarlett. I go, this is a bad idea. And of course, in the first few minutes of the match, fall out of the ring through the barbed wire, get ripped all the way up. Still do another 10 to 12 minutes of crazy shit, DVDs out of the ring, all the stuff.
Jesus.
And that's my Jimmy Lloyd tattoo.
Okay.
It'll be with me forever.
Wow.
I went to the doctor 2 days late and made up a fake story. And she was like, okay, I don't believe you, but also there's nothing we can do now. It's too far gone. So now I just, when I work out my back, I can feel it itching.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's there forever. Part of my life, you know. Sometimes you get scars.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy.
We got Effie here, and we call the fans here in Defy more than just fans. They're what we call the Defiants.
Hell yeah.
Do you have any words for the Defiants now that you've made your debut here in Defy?
Yeah, you guys are wild. You're here for everything. You are celebrating all parts of pro wrestling. And I think, sometimes when you're on the inside, you can't see how it looks on the outside. The energy comes across in the videos and your love for wrestling comes across. So just trust yourselves. If it's cool, keep putting it over. And this venue fucking rules.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You heard it first from EFFY, man. Thank you so much. And you're welcome back to Defy anytime, brother.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Professional wrestling has a brand new home where you can watch top-tier action for free. Defy, Enjoy, PCW Ultra, and more. Your new destination for the very best professional wrestling. Remix.tv, where we watch wrestling.